Zatri Sinha, Academic Officer English, National Institute of Open Schooling. Today we will read the story Kondiba, a hero, which is included in our secondary English course 202 as lesson 3. This is the story of Kondiba, who is visually challenged. The story will tell us how he becomes a hero and becomes economically independent. Before starting the lesson, we must look into the learning outcomes that are supposed to be obtained after completing the lesson. So, first of all, the learners will relate to the feelings of differently able people and find ways to support them. Then we can critically analyze a situation and take a decision. Then we will able to use reasoning to form an opinion, and we will recognize our feelings and emotions. We can also learn to use verbs in the past tense and the past perfect tense accurately. We will learn to use phrasal verbs and write narrative pieces. So let's start the lesson. Kondiba Gaikwar hated begging, but the famine in Maharashtra in 1972 to 73 had driven him from his home in Aurangabad to Mumbai in search of bread. At first he had tried selling brooms. Unfortunately, he had little luck selling his goods. He soon learned that Mumbai is generous to beggars, especially blind beggars, and 25-year-old Kondiba was blind. He had become blind with smallpox at the age of 8. So, Kondiba Gaikwar is the central character in this story who faced a difficult choice of resorting to begging due to the famine in Maharashtra in 1972 to 73. He is originally from Aurangabad, a city in Maharashtra. Famine refers to a widespread scarcity of food leading to hunger and starvation. This crisis likely disrupted the normal livelihoods of many people in the region. Because of the famine and the lack of sustenance in his hometown, Kondiba had no choice but to leave and search for food and opportunities elsewhere. He ended up in Mumbai, one of India's major cities. Now, Kondiba strongly disliked the act of begging. This suggests that he had a sense of self-respect and dignity and didn't want to depend on the charity of others. Initially, Kondiba attempted to make a living by selling brooms, but he had little success in business, and Kondiba soon realized that Mumbai was a place where beggars, particularly blind beggars, received generosity from the public. People in Mumbai were more inclined to provide assistance and alms to those in need, especially if they had disabilities. It is also revealed in the story that Kondiba was blind, having lost his sight due to smallpox when he was just 8 years old. This disability likely made it even more challenging for him to find employment or engage in other means of earning a living rather than begging. So the story opens with a depiction of the hardships faced by Kondiba Gaikwar, the protagonist, as he grapples with the moral dilemma of begging, driven by the famine and his blindness in the city of Mumbai, where he found that the generosity of the people was more inclined towards beggars, particularly those with disabilities like him. So let's carry on the lesson. It was a cloudy day in Gulliver, the large slum colony in Ghotakpur, northeast of Mumbai. Kondiba lived here with Tukaram and Tukaram's wife, Yelanbai. It was the end of the monsoon. In the middle of an open area in the colony, there was a well. It was full of blackish green water. Nothing could be seen more than a few centimeters below the surface. Now the story provides a vivid description of the setting and environment in Gulliver, a large slum colony located in Ghatkopar, a northeastern suburb of Mumbai. The scene is set on a cloudy day, indicating that the sky is overcast with clouds. This weather detail can create a mood of gloominess or anticipation, and it's a common way to set the atmosphere in a story. Now the main character, the protagonist of the story, Kondiba, lives in this Gulliver. He shares his living space with two other individuals, Tukaram and Tukaram's wife Yelanbai. Then it is stated that the story is set in a rainy season, which is a significant weather event in many parts of India, is concluding. Then the writer provides a short description of the village. In the middle of the slum colony, there is a well, and the presence of a well suggests that it is a crucial source of water for the residents of Gullibar. Wells are often central to daily life in areas where a piped water supply might be limited. The well is described as having water that appears blackish green. Discoloration of the water can be due to factors like stagnant water, algae, or contamination. The water seems murky, making it challenging to see anything beneath the surface beyond a few centimeters. So, the well was highly useful to the people who lived in the surrounding huts. They had dug it 2 years before because the only water tap in the colony was not enough for the slum's growing population. There had never been any money for a wall around the well. The mouth of the well had gradually widened as the soil and rocks on the sides fell in. The bottom was narrow, muddy, and filled with weeds. So the well is described as being highly useful to the people who lived in the surrounding huts. This suggests that the well serves as a crucial source of water for their daily needs, such as drinking, cooking, and washing. And after that, we come to know that the well was dug 2 years prior to the events in the story. The reason for digging the well was the inadequacy of water tap in the colony. With the slum population growing, the single tap couldn't provide enough water for everyone. Consequently, the residents took it upon themselves to dig the well as a practical solution to their water needs. So, despite its importance, there was never enough money available to build a protective wall around the well. This lack of infrastructure maintenance implies a challenging financial situation within the slum, where basic necessities are prioritized over amenities like a well enclosure. The passage then describes the deteriorating condition of the well over time. The mouth of the well had gradually widened as soil and rocks on the sides fell in. This process likely made the well more hazardous and unstable. The bottom of the well is depicted as narrow, muddy, and filled with weeds, further emphasizing its deteriorated state. So, next part of the lesson. The well was dangerous, but it had been there for so long that no one worries about it. It seemed harmless. Kondiba had returned to the slum to eat a little food which Yelanbai had prepared. His day's begging usually ended when he had collected ₹5 or ₹6 in his small gunny bag. So, despite its dangerous condition, the well had been present in the slum for an extended period, leading to a sense of complacency among the residents. It had become a familiar and seemingly harmless part of their surroundings. This could symbolize how people often adapt to and overlook hazards when they become accustomed to them. Now, one day, Kondiba returned to the slum from where he had gone out to beg during the day, a common practice for him. His day typically ended when he had collected a modest sum of ₹5 or ₹6 in his small gunny bag. This amount likely represents his daily earnings from begging, which, while essential for his survival, may not be sufficient for a comfortable life. So, here we are provided with insight into the practical importance of the well for the slum's residents and the financial challenges they face and the hazardous condition of the well itself. They also introduce Kondiba's routine and income source, giving us a glimpse into the daily life in Gullibar. So, next part of the lesson. Suddenly, there were shouts and sounds of great confusion. Kondiba and Yelanbai were startled. Someone has fallen in the well, they heard a woman cry. Kondiba set aside his meal and said urgently, "Quick, lead me there." Within a minute, the blind beggar and the woman reached the well and pushed their way through a small group at the mouth of the well. So, at this point, there is a sudden and dramatic turn of events near the well in Gulliver. The abrupt emergence of shouts and commotion creates a sense of chaos and confusion. This unexpected disturbance serves as the inciting incident in the narrative and sets the stage for what follows. Kondiba and Yelenbai were startled by the commotion and they quickly grasped the gravity of the situation. They heard a woman's cry indicating that someone has fallen into the well. And Kondiba, despite being blind, recognizes the urgency of the situation. He promptly sets aside his meal. It shows his readiness to help, his sense of responsibility, his willingness to assist in a crisis demonstrates his character's courage and his compassion. Now, Kondiba and Yelenbai rush to the well within a minute. Upon reaching the well, they encountered a small group of people gathered at the well's mouth. The crowd has likely gathered in response to the emergency, but the situation remains chaotic and uncertain. Then, in seconds, Kondiba pulled off his shirt and slipped into the water. Two boys were already paddling around trying to find young Arvind, who had fallen off a tree trunk while drawing water. The boys could not dive. So Kondiba wastes no time. He swiftly removes his shirt and enters into the water. This act shows his willingness to take decisive action despite his blindness and the potential danger involved. So gradually it becomes clear that young Arvind has fallen into the well while attempting to draw water. Likely from the dangerous and deteriorated well described earlier. Two boys are already in the water trying to locate and rescue Arvind. However, they face difficulties, possibly because they are unable to dive effectively. So a sudden emergency situation in Gulliver has occurred where a child, Arvind, has fallen into the well. Kondiba and Yelenbai respond urgently, with Kondiba taking the lead in the rescue effort. The presence of others at the scene adds to the tension and uncertainty of the situation and emphasizes the importance of quick and decisive action to save a life. Then the story says, Kondiba had been a good swimmer as a young boy before he lost his sight, but years of poverty had made him weak. Once he had been able to dive deep into the wells around his village to pick up shining bits of broken pottery that he and his friends would throw in as part of a game. But it had been many years since he had tried to hold his breath long enough to get to the bottom of a well. So these lines reveal that when Kondiba was a young boy, before he lost his sight, he was a good swimmer. This means that Kondiba had the skills and physical ability to swim well. Swimming is a valuable skill in many places, especially in the localities near bodies of water like wells or ponds. And as a skilled swimmer, Kondiba and his friends used to play a game involving diving into wells. They would dive deep to retrieve shining bits of broken pottery as a part of their childhood game. This activity not only demonstrates Kondiba's swimming proficiency but also paints a picture of his earlier, more carefree days. Then the impact of poverty on Kondiba's physical condition is highlighted. Over the years, his impoverished circumstances have led to a decline in his physical strength and abilities. Poverty can result in malnutrition and a lack of access to health care, which can contribute to physical weakness. It's mentioned that many years have passed since Kondiba last attempted to hold his breath long enough to reach the bottom of a well. This suggests that Kondiba's current state is a far cry from his youthful vigor and swimming prowess. So the passage emphasizes the contrast between his past and his present abilities. So we get to know about Kondiba's background and the impact of poverty on his physical capabilities. His past as a skilled swimmer and diver serves as a contrast to his current situation, where he is faced with the challenges of rescuing Arvind from the well despite his weakened state due to poverty and the passage of time. So next paragraph, Kondiba floated on the surface for a moment, then took a deep breath and dived, carefully feeling his way along the rocks on the side of well. He reached the bottom, his feet sank into the soft mud. He felt nothing but the mud and the slippery weeds. Tired and with his breath running out, he came to the surface. So these lines describe Kondiba's action as he attempted to rescue Arvind from the well. After entering the water, Kondiba initially floats on the surface for a moment to adjust to the water's temperature and to gather his bearings before attempting the dive. Kondiba then takes a deep breath, likely preparing himself for the challenging task of diving to the bottom of the well. This is a crucial step for a successful dive, as having enough oxygen is essential when in a task of rescuing. As Kondiba descends into the water, he relies on his sense of touch to navigate. He carefully feels his way along the rocks on the side of the well. This tactile exploration is necessary in the absence of sight and to avoid potential obstacles or dangers underwater. He successfully reaches the bottom of the well. His feet sink into the soft mud, indicating that he has touched the well's floor. This achievement is significant because it means he has reached the depth where young Arvind is believed to be, right? So at the bottom of the well, Kondiba was feeling nothing but the mud and slippery weeds. This sensory description provides a vivid image of the underwater environment as well as he is navigating. It also suggests that locating Arvind may not be straightforward, as the surroundings are filled with mud and vegetation. As Kondiba remains submerged, his physical exertion and limited breath-holding capacity take a toll. He starts to feel tired and his breath is running out. This conveys the physical challenges and risks he faces in attempting this rescue. Due to his fatigue and diminishing air supply, Kondiba decides to return to the surface. Coming back up for air is a crucial step in maintaining his safety and well-being while attempting the rescue. Here the story illustrates Kondiba's courageous and determined efforts to reach the bottom of the well to rescue Arvind despite his challenging condition. Not only his challenging condition, his blindness and his physical strains of the task. His ability to navigate the underwater environment through touch and his decision to resurface when necessary demonstrates his resourcefulness in this critical moment. So, next paragraph. It was now 2 minutes since Arvind had fallen in. His aunt, with whom he lived, was at the well. As Kondiba surfaced without the boy, he heard her wailing. The blind man took another deep breath and vanished into the muddy depths. So the line continues to describe the tense situation at the well as Kondiba attempts to rescue Arvind. It indicates that 2 minutes have passed since Arvind fell into the well. Time is of the essence in this emergency, as Arvind's well-being is at risk the longer he remains submerged, right? So it is also said that Arvind's aunt, who is presumably responsible for him and worried about his safety, is at the well. Her presence adds to the emotional intensity of the situation. When Kondiba resurfaces from his first dive without having Arvind, he hears Arvind's aunt wailing. Her cries are a poignant reminder of the urgency and gravity of the situation. The fact that he hasn't located the boy on his first dive raises the stakes and tension in the narrative. Kondiba, realizing the continued danger that Arvind faces, takes another deep breath. This indicates his determination to make another attempt to rescue the boy, even though he has already expended energy and breathed on the previous dive. With renewed determination, Kondiba dives back into the well, disappearing into the muddy depths. This action underscores his bravery and commitment to saving Arvind, despite the challenging conditions and his blindness. Next in the lesson, his first dive had given him a good idea of the shape of the well, so he went straight down and tried to search the bottom with his hands. They slipped in the mud and got caught in the weeds. There was still no sign of the boy. So, Kondiba's first dive has given him valuable information about the shape and layout of the well. It was not at all futile. So, armed with this knowledge, he decides to go straight down, likely aiming to reach the area where he believes Arvind might be. This strategy reflects his resourcefulness and adaptability in the crisis. Kondiba tries to search the well's bottom using his hands. However, the mud and slippery weeds make this task difficult and treacherous. This emphasizes the challenging conditions he faces in the murky water. And despite his efforts, there is still no sign of Arvind at the well's bottom. This lack of progress adds to the tension and uncertainty of the situation. The passage leaves the outcome of the rescue attempts in suspense. So, these lines depict a highly dramatic and urgent situation in which Kondiba is making a second dive into the well to rescue Arvind. The lack of progress in finding the boy raises the stakes and keeps the reader engaged in the outcome of this critical moment. Then in the lesson we read that his lungs were nearly bursting. So Kondiba's lungs were nearly bursting. He rose to the top once again. He had been down longer than the first time. So the women and children were getting more and more excited. When his head appeared above the water, the crowd gave a sigh of disappointment. So these lines describes the intense and desperate moments as Kondiba repeatedly dives into the well in an attempt to rescue Arvind. The writer here highlights the physical strains on Kondiba. His lungs are nearly bursting, indicating that he has been underwater for a prolonged period, holding his breath as he searches for Arvind. This emphasizes the urgency of the situation and the limits of his endurance. And despite the immense physical discomfort, Kondiba resurfaces once again. He must return to the surface to replenish his oxygen supply and catch his breath before making another attempt to find Arvind. As Kondiba resurfaces for the second time, the people gathered around the well, including women and children, become increasingly excited. Their emotions are heightened as they anxiously await news of the rescue. However, when Kondiba's head emerges above the water without Arvind, the crowd reacts with a sigh of disappointment. The crowd's excitement suggests that they were hopeful during Kondiba's dives and had expectations of a successful rescue. Their emotions are running high as they watch the unfolding events. Also, the crowd's sigh of disappointment indicates that they had hoped for a quick and positive outcome. Kondiba's resurfacing without the boy is met with disappointment, possibly because they realize the gravity of the situation and the challenges involved in the rescue. Overall, these lines depict the tension and anticipation surrounding Kondiba's repeated dives into the well. His struggle to hold his breath and emotional reactions of the onlookers highlight the high stakes and uncertainty of the rescue attempt. The crowd's disappointment underscores the urgency of the situation and the desire for a successful outcome. Next, the writer says, never in all the years of his blindness had Kondiba missed his vision so much. If only he could see, he might be able to find the drowning boy. He did not know that even normal eyes would never have been able to see in muddy water. So we will explain these lines surely, but after a short break. Thank you.
ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम में हमें NIOS के थ्रू ये सिखाया जाता है, बताया जाता है कि आपको कौन सी प्रॉब्लम में पेशेंट को कैसे स्टेबलाइज करना है।
हेल्थ वर्कर का कोर्स करने के बाद में व्यक्ति इतना निपुण अवश्य हो जाता है कि किसी मरते हुए व्यक्ति की, चाहे वो जलने से हो, चाहे वो डूबने से हो, चाहे वो करंट लगने से हो, चाहे वो सड़क का एक्सीडेंट हो, चाहे वो हार्ट अटैक हो, चाहे दौरा पड़ने से हो, उसकी जान बचा सके। और जान बचाने के बाद में उसको प्राथमिक उपचार देने के उपरांत इमरजेंसी तक पहुंचा सके, जहां पे कि डॉक्टर की देखरेख में उसका आगे का इलाज संभव हो सके।
सामुदायिक स्वास्थ्य प्रशिक्षण कार्यक्रम NIOS का बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण प्रशिक्षण कार्यक्रम है। इस कार्यक्रम में आधारभूत जीव विज्ञान, मातृत्व एवं बाल स्वास्थ्य देखभाल, रोगों व आपातकालीन स्थितियों में निवारण एवं प्रबंधन, ये 3 महत्वपूर्ण विषय हैं जिनके आधार पर एक स्वास्थ्य कार्यकर्ता बहुत ही अच्छी तरीके से किसी भी इमरजेंसी को हैंडल करने में सक्षम होता है और किसी भी इमरजेंसी में वो फर्स्ट एड दे करके उसको डॉक्टर के पास रेफर कर सकता है। आइए हम सब मिलकर के इस स्वास्थ्य कार्यक्रम को सफल बनाएं। जय हिंद, जय भारत। जय हो।
Welcome back, learners. We were reading Kondiba, a hero, which is included in our secondary English course 202. We were reading a passage from the lesson where Kondiba was trying to rescue Arvind. Let's read the passage again. Never in all the years of his blindness had Kondiba missed his vision so much. If only he could see, he might be able to find the drowning boy. He didn't know that even normal eyes would never have been able to see in muddy water. So these lines delve into Kondiba's inner thoughts and feelings during the critical rescue attempt and shed light on his yearning for sight, that the limitations posed by the murky water. He possesses a deep yearning for his lost vision. Despite having lived with blindness for many years, this moment is one of the times he has missed his sight the most. So Kondiba's wish to see is not just a general desire, but a specific hope that his sight might enable him to find the drowning boy Arvind. He recognizes that having the ability to see might provide visual cues or clues that could aid in the rescue effort. Then the writer highlights an important fact. What was that? Even if Kondiba had his vision, or if anyone had normal eyesight, it would be nearly impossible to see in the muddy water of the well. Muddy water is often turbid and opaque, making it difficult to discern objects beneath the surface. The fact underscores the frustration and desperation that Kondiba feels in this critical moment. His longing for sight reveals how deeply he wishes for the ability to visually locate and rescue Arvind. However, the realization that even normal eyesight would be ineffective in the muddy water adds a sense of hopelessness to the situation for the reader. It reinforces the idea that the circumstances are extraordinarily challenging and success in the rescue depends on factors beyond visual perception. Then the writer goes on to say, Kondiba was very tired, but he knew he was Arvind's only hope. He worked as fast as he could, feeling his way through the mud and the weeds. Arvind must be here, he thought. He cannot have vanished. So these lines illustrates Kondiba's determination and unwavering commitment to save Arvind's life as he continues his rescue efforts in the well. The lines begin by acknowledging Kondiba's exhaustion. He has been diving repeatedly into the well, struggling for breath and navigating the challenging underwater environment. Despite his fatigue, he remains steadfast in his mission. Kondiba recognizes that he is Arvind's only hope for rescue. In this dire situation, he fully understands the gravity of the responsibility resting on his shoulders. This realization motivates him to continue his efforts despite his weariness. So, despite his tiredness, Kondiba knows that time is of the essence. He works as quickly as he can, knowing that every moment counts in a life or death situation. His urgency reflects his commitment to ensuring Arvind's safety. Kondiba continues to rely on his sense of touch to navigate through the muddy water and weeds. His determination to locate Arvind drives him to persist in the challenging and treacherous conditions of the well. Kondiba firmly refuses to entertain the possibility that the boy has vanished or been lost. This unwavering belief underscores his dedication to the rescue and his refusal to give up hope. So these lines portray Kondiba as a heroic figure who, despite his own physical and sensory limitations, is willing to push himself to the limit to save Arvind. His sense of duty, urgency and faith in finding the boy's presence in the well drives his actions as he perseveres in the challenging and exhorting rescue effort. Then the writer says, Kondiba's ribs were aching. He couldn't hold his breath much longer. Then, just as he was about to twist his body upright and kick himself to the surface, his finger felt something soft among the weeds. Clothed, he moved his hand further and touched Arvind's legs. The boy's body was held in the mud and weeds. So, the writer describes a critical moment in Kondiba's rescue effort as he searches underwater in the well for Arvind. His ribs are aching and he is struggling to hold his breath. This emphasizes the immense physical strain and discomfort he is enduring during his repeated dives into the well. Kondiba is reaching the limit of how long he can hold his breath and underwater. Then Just as Kondiba is on the brink of resurfacing due to his limited breath holding capacity, he makes a crucial discovery. His finger comes into contact with something soft among the weeds underwater. This sensation is significant as it suggests the possibility of finding Arvind, right? So Kondiba continues to explore with his hand and confirms that what he has touched is cloth. This fabric is likely to be a part of Arvind's clothing, further indicating that he is on close proximity. Kondiba's hand moves further and he touches Arvind's legs. This direct contact with the boy's body confirms that he has indeed located Arvind in the well. Arvind is held in the mud and weed at the bottom of the well. This explains why he had not been able to surface or make his presence known. Arvind's predicament underscores the gravity of the situation and the critical needs for immediate rescue. So, despite his physical exhaustion and limited breath, Kondiba somehow manages to locate Arvind underwater. His determination and perseverance have paid off, and the discovery of Arvind's presence is a ray of hope in a dire situation. So then, we read in the lesson that Kondiba's heart was beating painfully. He badly needed to breathe. He felt desperately for something to hold in order to pull Arvind up and out of the net he was in. Suddenly, he felt Arvind's belt. Holding it tightly with his right hand, he pulled the lad free, turned about and pushed up. His spine and muscles ached. This almost stopped his movements. His weak, starved body fought against what his mind told him he must do. These lines depict the intense physical and emotional struggle Kondiba faces as he attempts to rescue Arvind from the well. Kondiba is in a state of severe physical distress. His heart is beating painfully, indicating the strain he is under. Additionally, his urgent need for air is growing, as he has been holding his breath for an extended period while searching for Arvind. Recognizing the critical need to pull Arvind out of the well, Kondiba desperately searches for something to hold on to. He is essentially searching for a lifeline, an object that will allow him to secure Arvind and bring him to the surface. Amid the turmoil, Kondiba's hand comes into contact with Arvind's belt underwater. This discovery is crucial because it provides a means to hold on to Arvind and facilitates his rescue. Kondiba clutches Arvind's belt tightly with his right hand and pulls Arvind free from the entanglement in the mud and weeds at the bottom of the well. And also, Kondiba is not spared from the physical strain and exhaustion of the rescue. His spine and muscles also ache as he exerts himself to lift Arvind. This illustrates the toll this life-saving endeavor has taken on his frail, unnourished body. But Kondiba's mind knows what he must do to save Arvind. But his weak and starved body is rebelling against the effort. This internal conflict underscores the extraordinary determination and Kondiba's courage and it takes to carry out this rescue operation. Then in the lesson, keeping a tight hold on the boy's belt, Kondiba struggled to push himself upward with his free hand and feet. It seemed a long time before he rose the 6 meters from the bottom and broke surface. While he gasped for breath, other hands quickly lifted Arvind up and out of the well. So Kondiba continues to maintain a tight grip on Arvind's belt as he struggles to push himself upwards with his free hand and feet. This is the crucial phase of the rescue where he must lift both himself and Arvind to the surface. His determination to save the boy is pitted against the limitations of his own weakened body, making the rescue a powerful testament to his willpower and heroism. And then we reach at the final stages of Kondiba's heroic rescue of Arvind from the well and the moments immediately following the successful rescue. The ascent from the well's bottom to the surface feels like a long time. This highlights the immense effort and exhaustion Kondiba is experiencing as he works to bring Arvind to safety. Eventually, Kondiba breaks the surface of the water, gasping for breath. This moment signifies the successful conclusion of the rescue, with both Kondiba and Arvind out of the well now. And once Kondiba and Arvind are at the surface, other individuals quickly step in to assist. They lift Arvind out of the well, taking over the immediate care of the rescued boy. Then next paragraph, Kondiba held on to the well's rocky side. His eyes closed, his body tired. He heard but paid little attention to the sounds of people trying to give Arvind artificial respiration. Finally, the boy began to vomit water, and cries to joy came to Kondiba, still holding tightly to the side of the well. So Kondiba clings to the well's rocky side, clearly exhausted from the extraordinary efforts. His eyes are closed and his body is tired. This underscores the immense physical and mental strain he has endured throughout the rescue. People are attempting to give Arvind artificial respiration to revive him. This is a standard procedure in water rescue situation to help restore normal breathing. And the continuity is actively involved in ensuring Arvind's well-being. Arvind begins to vomit water, a sign that he is regaining consciousness and clearing his airways. This is a positive indication of his recovery and a moment of relief for all involved. And the cries of joy likely come from the people witnessing Arvind's recovery. And Kondiba, still holding tightly to the side of the well, hears these cries, signaling the relief and happiness that the successful rescue has brought to the community. And so here we got the details of the challenging and ultimately successful rescue of Arvind from the well by Kondiba, and they highlight the physical exhaustion and strain Kondiba endures and the quick response of the community in assisting Arvind and the joyful moment when the boy starts to recover. And Kondiba's heroic actions and the collective efforts of those around him have resulted in a life-saving outcome. Then the writer goes on to write that then Arvind was hurried away to the hospital. A man helped Kondiba out of the well and a woman patted him affectionately on the shoulder. Yelenbai led him back to the hut. There Kondiba put on his clothes, finished his half-eaten milk and fell asleep. So Arvind is immediately rushed to the hospital after being rescued from the well. Then a man steps in to help Kondiba out of the well. This assistance acknowledges Kondiba's own physical exhaustion and the need for support after his heroic efforts. Additionally, a woman pats Kondiba affectionately on the shoulder, showing appreciation and affection for his bravery and selflessness. And Kondiba is led back to his hut by his companion who had prepared his meal earlier. This return to the familiar surroundings of his home signifies the end of the immediate crisis and the transition to a more relaxed and comfortable environment. Back at his hut, Kondiba proceeds to put on his clothes, suggests a return to his usual daily routine. This includes finishing his half-eaten meal, highlighted the interruption in his meal time due to the emergency. And resuming these activities signifies a return to normalcy after the intense events. After completing his meal and likely feeling the physical and emotional exhaustion from the rescue, Kondiba falls asleep. This is a natural response to the strain he endured during the rescue operation, and it marks a moment of rest and recovery for him. So these lines depict the post-rescue sequence of events, including Arvind's hospitalization, the support and appreciation shown to Kondiba by the community, and Kondiba's return to his home and the resumption of his daily routine. And the narrative highlights the relief and a sense of normalcy that follows the successful rescue. And it allows Kondiba to rest and recuperate after his heroic efforts. Then in the next paragraph, the evening a police officer came to tell the blind beggar that the boy he had saved would be all right. Kondiba later learned that if the boy had been in the well longer, his brain would certainly have been damaged from lack of oxygen, and Kondiba had saved him just in time. So these lines describe the events following the rescue and provide important information about Arvind's condition and the critical timing of Kondiba's heroic act. That evening, a police officer pays a visit to Kondiba, the blind beggar who had performed the daring rescue. And the purpose of the visit is to deliver positive news about the condition of the boy Arvind, whom Kondiba had saved from the well. And so the police officer informs Kondiba that the boy he rescued is going to be all right. And this news brings relief and a sense of closure to the situation. It confirms that Arvind is expected to recover from the near drowning incident. And the passage then goes on to reveal a critical piece of information. If Arvind had remained in the well for a longer period, his brain would have likely suffered damage due to lack of oxygen. And this detailed underscores the gravity of the situation and the life-threatening nature of Arvind's predicament. Kondiba's heroic rescue efforts are recognized as a race against time. He saved Arvind just in the peak time and preventing the boy from suffering brain damage due to oxygen deprivation. And this highlights the incredible timing and importance of Kondiba's actions, further emphasizing his role as a true lifesaver. And therefore, these lines provide a sense of closure to the narrative by confirming Arvind's recovery and highlighting the significance of Kondiba's timely rescue. And the information about potential brain damage underscores the high stakes involved and emphasizes Kondiba's heroism in saving the boy from a dire fate. Then, next paragraph. The next afternoon, Arvind returned to Gullibar. He went at once to Kondiba, and while his aunt watched with tears in her eyes, he touched Kondiba's feet in gratitude. Indeed, Kondiba had saved a life, but his own still had to go on, and for him that meant begging. The day after his rescue, Arvind returns to Gullibar. the slum colony where he lives, he seeks out Kondiba, the blind beggar who saved his life in a touching display of gratitude. Arvind touches Kondiba's feet. This is a traditional gesture of respect and gratitude in some cultures. Arvind's aunt, who had been deeply concerned for her nephew's well-being during the rescue, watches this scene with tears in her eyes. Her emotional reaction underscores the significance of Kondiba's heroic act and the relief and gratitude felt by Arvind's family. Despite his incredible act of saving a life, Kondiba's own circumstances and challenges persist. He still needs to continue his life as a beggar, which is his means of survival. This highlights the contrast between Kondiba's selfless heroism and the ongoing struggles he faces due to his blindness and poverty. Then writer says, by afternoon, Kondiba was back on the streets of Mumbai with his gunny sack. However, word soon began to spread about the beggar's courage. His picture and the story of his daring rescue were published in many national and local newspapers. So by the afternoon, Kondiba is back on the streets of Mumbai with his gunny sack, resuming his daily routine of begging. This emphasizes the harsh reality of his life and necessity of begging for his livelihood. Then suddenly Kondiba became a hero. He was praised by the governor, the chief minister of Maharashtra, and the other officials. Rewards totaling rupees 12,970 were presented to him. For a few months, he was given a home in a home for the blind. Here he learned some skills such as bottling and the weaving of the chaired seats. Then occurs a dramatic turn of events. His actions, Kondiba's actions, are widely acknowledged and he becomes a hero in the eyes of the public. And this sudden change in the status reflects the impact of his selfless act and the admiration of the garners. And Kondiba's heroism gains the attention and praise of high-ranking officials, including the governor and the chief minister of Maharashtra. And then, moreover, as part of the recognition and support extended to him, Kondiba is provided with temporary accommodation in a home for the blind. And this represents an improvement in his living conditions and demonstrates society's willingness to assist him in the wake of his heroism. Now Kondiba goes from being a blind beggar facing the daily struggles of poverty to becoming a celebrated hero, receiving recognition, rewards, and the opportunity to learn new skills. So today, Kondiba lives in Jalna, a market town close to his native village. He has married a local girl and runs a small business. Kondiba Gaikwad's bravery and determination to find the boy in the well had completely changed his own life. The beggar who hated begging need never beg again. So, all this led to a positive transformation. Kondiba now resides in Jalna, which is described as a market town close to his native village. And then this signifies a significant personal development in his life, moving from a solitary existence to as a blind beggar to forming a family and emotional connections. And Kondiba has also started and runs a small business. And the nature of this business isn't specified, but it's clear that he has transitioned from begging to a more self-sufficient and economically productive livelihood. And this represents a significant improvement in his financial situation. So the story concludes by stating that Kondiba, who once hated begging, no longer needs to beg. And this encapsulates the remarkable transformation in his life. He has moved from a state of dependency on the generosity of others as a beggar to a state of self-sufficiency and independence, where he can support himself through his business. So this is all regarding what is about Kondiba, a hero, the lesson number 3 of our secondary English course 202. That's all for today. Thank you.
यानी सौंदर्य एक आकर्षक विषय होने के साथ साथ एक लोकप्रिय व्यवसाय भी है। भारत में सौंदर्य उद्योग विकसित देशों की तुलना में दोगुनी तेजी से बढ़ रहा है।